Hey everyone. A lot of people have written in asking questions about some of the stuff in my room, most notably the little blue robot that's sitting behind my chair in most of my videos. That robot's name is Burton, and to understand the significance of Burton, I have to tell a fairly long and involved story, and that story involves this camera. I originally bought this camera because I had written a screenplay for a movie I wrote called FLGS, which is short for Friendly Local Game Store. The story behind that is that from the ages of like 16 to 21, I basically worked and lived out of a game shop known as Michael's Magic. It was a place that sold like board games, RPGs, stuff like that. And if you look around, you can kind of see the scope of just the beginning of the scope of the RPGs that I actually own. And they're in fact behind me, and I have rooms full of these things. Anyway, it was a very strange time. A lot of weird people came in there, just being kind of the part of the nerd culture. You know, we got into so many arguments over, geeky minutiae, Boba Fett, things like that. It's kind of what got me started on the whole movie thing, the whole game thing, and I really wanted to capture that in a screenplay. So I wrote this screenplay, and I bought a camera on eBay, a good camera, and I had even gotten so far as casting the play. I had a casting call at ASU, and that was where it kind of started to go wrong. Mainly women showed up to the audition. A lot of them, talented ones too. It was about a ratio of about like 20 women to 6 men who showed up, and the screenplay I'd written had about 18 male roles and 2 women. So I started realizing, like, can I rewrite this script to involve mostly women? And I couldn't do it. A, because I'm probably not that good a writer, and B, the script really wasn't that good anyway, so maybe it was a godsend it didn't get made. The main reason it didn't get made was because the location actually closed, and so I had no set at all to do it with. So the movie got scrapped. I never made it. And so I'm stuck with this camera, and I'm thinking, what else could I possibly do with this camera? So I thought about doing a little bit more small-scale type stuff, things I could do very cheaply. So one thing I thought about doing was I always wanted to do a Mystery Science Theater fan vid. So that's something you can do fairly cheaply. If you have a camera and a bed sheet, you can kind of do a Mystery Science Theater thing if you have the mind to do it. So what I was going to do was I had already done a number of DVD commentaries where I had written them out, and they were fairly good. They're on my website when you can get them to work. Sometimes I think the synchronization is a bit off, but I actually had a lot of fun writing them, and I had a lot of fun performing them, so I thought, why not graduate to the video stage? And so I was like, okay, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to do it my way. I could do Mystery Science Theater. I didn't want to have Crow and Sorbo. I wanted to rip it off, but I didn't want to rip it off that egregiously. I wanted to put my own little spin on it. Pardon me. So what I thought I'd do is make my own style on it. So what I was going to do is shoot this video involving me as a character, and put him in a bunker, not in outer space. And this bunker would be called Deep 42, which would be far below Deep 13. And the story behind that was Deep 42 would be this bunker where all this pop culture detritus was deposited, like the E.T. cartridges, like really bad movies, like the Roger Corman version of Fantastic Four, things like that. And so that would be the gimmick behind it. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to build my own type of robots, really crappy looking robots, for 2 reasons. One, because my character has absolutely no craftsmanship, and 2, I didn't have a lot of money to build professional looking robots. So I got a bunch of friends together, and what we did was we made several robots for the show. The best of which is Burton the robot here. Burton is a converted dust buster that I got at a hardware store, and I liked his color and the fact it had this little window. And so I thought it'd be great to have this little cyclopean robot with one eye. And he actually is finished. It helps if you have something to rest him on, but he has a working mouth. And he's, he got little hands. Thanks to Grady Daub for making such a good job for me. And this is a paint bucket body. So he works really well. He actually has a little goatee here. I was thinking of removing that. Maybe not. I kind of like it. It's growing on me. But the main reason why Burton is behind my chair is because I have nowhere else to put him. The story of my room is that I have about 3 times as many books as I have bookshelf space, and so most of the other stuff I have just kind of accumulates in piles. There are actually other robots in varying degrees of assembly. Here's another one. This is going to geek you out big time. Hang on. This is another one I made. He's not really finished. This one is Sorbo. What this guy used to be was a ultraviolet germ disinfecting lamp that my mom had. It's completely useless. But when I saw this thing, I thought, man, this thing looked like Nomad from Star Trek or what? So we kind of tore this thing apart, gave him a moving head. This thing was like one big solid hunk of metal, so it took a lot of effort actually to make him into a articulate, semi-articulate puppet. Like I said, this one isn't finished yet. I have never been able to figure out how to put arms on this guy because this is a stainless steel body. But what I wanted to do was make a robot with no actual mouth. What I wanted to do with this one, there's this little window here, and I actually have it working to where when he talks, this little window lights up instead of having a moving mouth. I thought this was really cool. So as soon as I get some arms on this guy and I clean him up, there's some kind of schmutz on this thing, like it's hot glue. I think this thing is pretty much ready to go. Another robot I had, this one's kind of funny. I saw this at Radio Shack. This is a car radio, which I really don't get, because what you do is you stick this thing on your car window and it's a functional radio. What I don't understand is why you would have this, because most cars have a radio in them. And this thing is too cheap. I mean, you should hear the sound these things put out. It's pathetic. But I thought this would be like a little cam bot. You'd see this once, maybe the entire series, you know. But there's another robot. It's not nearly finished. It's kind of a salon hairdryer I picked up at Goodwill. Anyway, you will probably not see the Mr. Science Theater thing get made, because all the people I talked to, nobody was willing to put in the kind of time and effort it took to record this kind of show. I couldn't write it on my own. I actually have like 4 or 5 episodes completely written, complete with, you know, little sketches. I even have a set design ready. So I mean, it's ready to go. But the thing is, I don't have 2 other. I need at least like 2 to 4 other people to do this, to serve as crew, puppeteers, other characters. I just don't have it. And it's a lot to ask people. You know, most people have more of a life than me, and they're not willing to throw it away, kind of just, you know, riffing on really bad 1950s movies. And like, I have this one thing of a sex education video from like 1955 or something like that. Nobody's willing to do that, so that project also never got off the ground. So kind of what I ended up doing was, I was like, I have this camera, I need to do something with it, so I started doing reviews. Also, another question people had was like these posters in the background. Those posters are there primarily because I have nothing else to put on my wall. I got these free from my employer. I work for a company called Kenzer and Company. I write movie review columns for their comic Nights at the Dinner Table. And one time they sent me those free, and I was like, I have nothing else to put on my wall. So I put those up. I wasn't actually shilling for the company. I was just filling space. But hey, if it encourages you to buy Kenzer and Company products, by all means. I do want to shill one thing for you though, because I picked this up lately and it actually is really cool. For those of you who play RPGs, this is a new RPG from them called Aces and Eights, and it's an Old West RPG, and it is awesome. Okay, it's a leather-bound book. It's completely dense, and it is by far like the most complete and realistic Western RPG that I think I have ever seen. And I haven't really seen a Western RPG since Boot Hill, an old TSR game from like the early 80s. So if you'd like, if it even sounds remotely interesting to you, by all means pick it up. It's just incredible how detailed it is. There are entire chapters on cattle drives, gold prospecting, everything. Anyway, that's the story behind Burton the Robot. And hey, if any of you guys have several $1,000s you want to throw into production, I will hold a casting call and put on my own little production of this show and sell DVDs and all that. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun. But until then, basically Burton will stay there, dusty as ever, and continue to collect dust until one day I become famous and become a major TV talk show host. So, have a good one.